Thank you. All right. Hello, my name is Ilan Yampolsky. I'm in 11th grade. I live down in Boston, and today I'm going to be doing a presentation on a research paper I've been writing with my mentor, with the topic being what the effect of fatigue in the hamstring muscles are on jump height. So I'm just going to preface this with saying why I'm interested in this. I'm very majorly interested in orthopedics, and I'm hoping that this paper could help me in any future papers that I write or in a future study that I'm planning on doing, which I will get into later. So first things first, what this study or what this paper is meant to be, is it aims to connect a bunch of dots on a collection of studies that I looked into to provide an explanation for something that might seem to be common knowledge, which is that fatigue would decrease jump height. Now, I'm just going to get into the background a little bit. The hamstrings are a biarticular muscle, which means they connect at the hip and the knee, it's made up of the semimembranosus, semitendinosus, and the biceps femoris. All three have to work together in order to perform concentric contraction, which is a shortening of the muscles to build up energy for the jump, and an eccentric contraction, which is the release of energy. So how those three work together and how they actually connect is through two factors: knee stability and muscle stiffness, which are heavily correlated. Now, muscle stiffness is essentially how flexible your muscles are, how elastic they are. And this connects to knee stability because knee stability is what keeps the knee stable in the name. And since the hamstrings connect at the knee and the hip, they can't function without knee stability. Now, for any sort of movement, there needs to be an energy transfer. And with muscle stiffness, and knee stability and muscle stiffness work hand in hand. Without one, the other one is poor, and vice versa. So again, like I said, with energy transfer between muscles needs to happen for any sort of movement, not just jumping. It can be mechanical energy, like a buildup of potential energy leading to kinetic energy. But the energy that I'm focusing on was elastic energy, which needs to be built up and transferred between muscles for any sort of movement. And in this particular movement, the jump, it is crucial due to the fact that there are three different muscles working together with a bunch of other muscles as well to perform a jump. Now, fatigue buildup is done through various different aspects. It can be done through just movement in general, which creates a sort of fatigue, which is a decrease in the amount of energy that can be moved throughout the muscles and the efficiency that energy can be transferred. Now, the study I'd mentioned previously, which is why I did this study on this. So I'd done this study to create a background on, like I said, something that was common knowledge, and a study that I want to do in the future is sort of either look at athletes in my school or in another school, or just athletes from a certain group that I can work with, and sort of perform a study of my own where I can look at the effects of short-term fatigue and long-term fatigue. Now, the research that I had done with Polygence is helpful for this because it gives a background that isn't present. What I would have had to do without this research is put together a bunch of studies of other people. With this research that I've done with Polygence, I'm able to put it all together into one to help back up this study, which would look into long-term and short-term fatigue. Short-term fatigue would be in reference to after a brief workout or a practice, the athletes would be jumping, and I'd be comparing the before and afters. And long-term would be over a season. If after practice in the beginning of the season, they're jumping higher or lower than the practice at the end of the season, well, I would have to be comparing that and coming up with conclusions based on that. So that is my presentation. Thank you for having me. That's it.
Amazing. Feel free to leave questions in the chat for Ilan. Let's see. So the first question from Veronica, did you find any research that was contradictory? And if so, how did you think about that or handle that?
Yeah, so in the beginning, when I had started, I'd found a lot of research that was sort of contradictory as far as the fatigue, because I've been finding research that in the past, how fatigue was working in relation to the hamstrings, whether or not the hamstrings actually played a crucial role in jumping. But those were more of studies that had been done in the past. When I looked further and I had to find more studies that were done recently, it became far more consistent. Whereas which it was telling me the hamstrings were heavily used, which is why I focused on the hamstrings. In the beginning, I sort of just was looking to find that muscle that I wanted to focus on. And after that research, finding the inconsistencies and then finding that one inconsistency, that's when I chose the hamstrings. And so, yeah, I did come across a few and I managed to connect them.
Amazing. Another question for you. Are you an athlete yourself? And how has this research helped your own performance, if so?
Yeah, so I'm an athlete myself. I play soccer and I wrestle. And I've torn my hip flexor and my ACL most recently. So it's been more of it hasn't impacted me, but it sort of pushed me to be more diligent in what I'm doing and be more passionate about it.
Got it. And then the last question, which I'll probably have, unless there's anything else from the audience, I'm curious what comes next in terms of your research or your own kind of like performance investigations for athletes.
Yeah, so I want to expand this to sort of a bigger scope of wanting to test athletes in different sports and how their sort of regimen compares to other sports regimens in just jumping. Now, I don't want to just test like basketball and volleyball, which are primarily jumping sports. I would want to test sports that don't primarily use that and how those athletes would perform with fatigue and without fatigue.
Great. Final call. Any last questions for Ilan before I let you off the spotlight?